Hey guys, I'm MG, and today I'll be looking at Unbreakable, which is a 2000 American superhero thriller film that was written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, which also stars Bruce Willis, who we've seen before in Die Hard, as the main character, David Dunn. That is about him realizing his superhuman abilities, which causes him to seek help from Elijah Price. However, why don't we stop knocking down comic books and start reviewing this film right now? I think this movie is pretty decent for what it is, because it has a lot of strong aspects, but also some iffy stuff in it that I'm not a huge fan of. But let's start with the positives first, shall we? What I really like about this movie is how it subverts the superhero genre. Usually there's a lot of action and clear stuff that makes it superhero, like the costumes. But here, there is hardly any action. The only set piece was this one at the house, and even then, it's not all that action based. And there is nothing in this film that shows its superhero genre outside of the comic books. But there's still not a huge factor in the plot, and that makes this film all the more better because of its subversion, which makes it a really interesting and unique story to follow that I was really engaged towards, and found myself invested in this discovery. Another great part of the film is how well made it is. I do wish some of the lighting was a little less dark, but otherwise, this film has really great direction from Shyamalan, with its eerie lighting and inventive cinematography, which has a lot of clean shots and well-timed slow-motion parts mixed in with one-takes that were really cool. The one-takes could have been shorter, but they were otherwise very neat. The music by James Newton Howard was really effective, and it enhanced all of the dramatic tension that each moment should have. The performances were also great. Bruce Willis was very compelling in his acting, Samuel L. Jackson was incredibly riveting, Robin Wright was really natural, and Spencer Treat Clark is very good in his kid performance, especially in all of his emotional moments. I like all the lore with the comic books that hardly feel nostalgic and not a marketing material. Except for when Elijah mentioned kryptonites. I really wish he didn't say that. But despite all these positives, the film has a few unfortunate issues, like the ending. I don't think it's as bad as others make it out to be, but it still doesn't feel very natural, and was just a bit janky. However, the characters are my main issue. I think they're all kind of boring, especially David and his family. I just didn't care all that much about their relationship, and while they did have some really good scenes, like the kitchen scene was probably the best moment in the film, I just wasn't all that invested towards them, since they don't have a lot of depth. Elijah is a little better, but I still don't really care about him, and he wasn't as delightful as I expected him to be, since Samuel L. Jackson outshines in pretty much all of his filmography. It's dumb how Elijah doesn't get into any trouble after his chaos at the comic book store. There were a few pointless scenes, like the opening conversation, and Shyamalan's cameo feels completely wasted, so that was disappointing. I also feel like the film is a little too serious. I understand why its tone is mature, but for this particular story, I wish that there was a little more humor in it, rather than being fully mature about it all the time. And it's not like it needed to be comedic, but a lot of the emotional moments kinda fell flat, which is why I think some humor would have made this a little more investing. I mean, there's a huge focus on comic books. In my opinion, that's something you don't need to take as seriously as this movie unfortunately does. The pacing is also quite slow, with where a lot of the scenes feel drawn out, and it was so unnecessary, since there were quite a few scenes that did not need to be as long as they were. So overall, I enjoyed this film for what it was, and it has really good aspects, but a couple of things hold it back from being rewatchable. I don't see any reason why I should come back to it, but if you want to watch it, then go ahead. I kind of liked it, but it's not really memorable unfortunately. 6.8 out of 10. Goodbye everyone, and thank you for watching. Bye!